The main content is taught by many, but it is the minute details that matter. If you are also a fan of these minute details as well as the perfection, then please subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified about every detail I post. Hello learners and welcome to Constant Learners. And in this video, we are discussing the difference between pixels, percentage and viewport. Margins, padding, font size, line height, letter spacing, word spacing, width, height, each of these requires some unit of measurement. Picas, points, pixels, EM, REM, percentage, viewport, all of these are the units of measurements that can be used to set the dimensions during web designing. However, these units of measurements in CSS are divided into two categories. One is absolute lengths and the other one is relative lengths. Centimeters, inches, points, picas, pixels, etc. come under absolute lengths, that is fixed lengths, while EM, REM, percentage, viewport, etc. come under relative lengths. Absolute length have absolute values, that is fixed values. Fixed values as in, that means these values remain constant irrespective of the change in display screen size. Okay, so when we define a dimension using absolute length, its appearance stays constant over every screen size, whether we're viewing it in the mobile phone or a laptop. Its size will stay the same. Okay, the screen sizes are always changing. Okay, so it's important that our website is able to adapt to those changes, and this is known as creating responsive web design. So absolute lengths cannot create responsive web design because they stay constant over every screen size. Okay, that we will see while we practice it in our text editor. Relative lengths, on the other hand, set the dimensions with respect to other elements. So they do not have fixed values. They relate either to the dimensions of their parent elements or to the viewport. We will see that when we practice those. And thus the dimensions scale according to the display screen's sizes. They look appropriate for the size of the screen they are being viewed on. And thus they make our website designs responsive. So let's start with pixel. Pixel is an absolute length, but it is very widely used by the designers. However, it must be avoided because it interferes with the user's default browser settings. Right? We set some font size or some display sizes on our browsers or on our mobile phones. Okay, so if a user has set his browser's default font size larger or smaller than what a web designer has chosen in pixels, then the user will have to view the site as per the designer's settings. Okay, because when the font sizes are set in pixels, they stay constant over every browser or display screen sizes. Okay, for example, a user has set his browser's default font size to be 20 pixels, and I, as a designer, have set the font size of 15 pixels while designing the web page. Then this font size of 15 pixel will stay constant and the user will have to read in the smaller fonts. Okay, also pixels cannot make the website design responsive. Hence, we must avoid using pixels. Let's see some examples over our text editor. Okay, so here in the text editor, I have a paragraph inside a div, and the div is inside the body tag. Okay, so body is the parent of my div and div is the parent for my paragraph. Okay, and the output is visible on the screen. Okay, now let's head to style.css. I have set the margin and padding for the body to be 0. Okay, now let us give a border to our div. It will help us to view the output more clearly. Okay, the border will help us to view the output more clearly. Let us now set the width of this div to 200 pixels. Okay, let's save this and you can see the output on our web page. See, we have a div of 200 pixels width. Now let us change the size of our display area. See, still the width of div stays constant. Okay. Now let us set the width of paragraph to 150 pixels. Also, let's change the font size to 50 pixels. So when we use pixels, the dimensions stay constant irrespective of the screen size. Okay. To avoid these problems and to make our design responsive, it is advisable to use relative lengths. Percentage and viewport both are relative lengths and are good options for designing responsive websites. Okay. When the dimensions are set in percentage, the values taken are with respect to its parent element. For example, if I set the width of this div to be 100%, it will be with respect to its parent element. Okay, that is the body. See, the div covers the complete width of the screen because we have set the margin padding for the body to be 0, and that is why the div is covering the complete screen. Okay, now if we set the width to be 50%, the div will take only half of the screen because div's width will be 50% with respect to the body. So you can see now my div has taken 50% of the area of the total width, okay, which is the body's width. Okay, but if we increase the size of our display area, the 50% width of div will also increase. Okay, the 50% width of the div will be with respect to the current screen size. See, our div will always stay 50% of the total width. Okay, now if I set the width of the paragraph to be 50%, it will take 50% space of the div because div is the parent of this paragraph. Okay, and this 50% will change as per the screen size. Okay, so as you see, our paragraph has taken 50% space of the div. Okay, and our div has taken 50% space of the complete body width. So percentages take their values with respect to the parent. Okay, when we set a dimension in percentage, it is with respect to the parent's dimensions. Okay, and as I increase the size or reduce the size of the display area, my width of the div as well as the width of the paragraph goes on changing. Okay, now if I set the margin to be auto for our div, what will happen? The div's width is already 50%. So the rest of the 50% of the body's width will be divided equally between the left and the right margin for the div. You can see that our div has come in the center. It is still taking 50% of the width only, but it has come in the center, and on the both sides, that is left side and the right side, the margin has divided equally. Okay, so if my div is taking 50% of the width, how much will be left? 50%. So the rest 50% of the body's width will be divided equally on both sides, left side and right side. Okay, that means this side is having 25% of the margin, and this side is having 25% of the margin. Okay, and the 50%, rest of the 50% is with the width of the div. Okay, I hope that percentage was clear now. So we have seen how percentages can make our websites responsive. If used carefully, the designs can scale very beautifully according to the screen sizes. Okay. Next up is the viewport. Viewport means the total display area. Okay. So percentages were taking their dimensions with respect to the parent element. Viewport takes the dimensions with respect to the total display area, that is the viewport. Okay. Viewport has two properties: viewport height and viewport width. Viewport height is from this corner to this corner. Okay, this is the viewport height. And viewport width is from this corner to this corner. Okay, and it keeps changing with the size of the display screen. Like now, when I have increased the size of the display screen, the width will change from this corner to this corner. It's important to understand how viewport widths and heights work, because these are also a percentage of the total display width and height, but it is with respect to the viewport, not with the parent element. Okay, let's suppose that the total viewport width right now is 1000 pixels. Just for example, let's assume that the viewport width, that is from here until here, is 1000 pixels right now. Okay, and set the width of div to 10 viewport width. Okay, it's important to write 10 VW. Okay, because we're setting the width. That means I want the div's width to be 10% of the total viewport width. Okay, and we have considered the total viewport width to be 1000 pixels. So 10% of 1000 pixel is going to be equal to 100 pixel. That means now my div's width is going to be 100 pixels only if my total viewport width is 1000 pixels. Okay, so this is how viewport widths and viewport heights work. Okay, if I assume that the total viewport height is 1200 pixels right now, okay, and I set the height of div to 20 viewport height, that means I want the div's height to be 20% of the total viewport height, and we have considered the total viewport height to be 1200 pixels. Okay, so 20% of 1200 pixels will be 240 pixels. Okay, now obviously the viewport width and height will change according to the display size of the screen. So the div's width and height will also change accordingly, thus making our website responsive. Let's try that. So I have set the div's width to be 10 viewport width, which is 10% of my total viewport width. Okay, so see, right now my total viewport width is this much. Okay, and we can see that my div size is 10% of this total width. Now if I increase the display size or the width of my display area, see the 10 viewport width, that is 10% of the total viewport width, is also increasing. Okay, and 20%, my height is 20 viewport height, means 20% of the total height. Okay, now even if I increase reduce the size, my my div's height will also reduce, and if I increase the height of my display area, my div's height will increase. Okay, so that is why we say that our website is responsive. Okay, so now let's set the width of our div to 50 viewport widths. 50 viewport width means what? 50% of the total width. Okay, and let's set the height also to 50 viewport heights, that is 50% of the total height. And see, this 50% keeps changing with the total viewport width and height. Okay, so if I am changing the size of the display area, the width or the height, my div size will also change. Okay, thus it is advisable to use relative lengths to design our websites. It is far better with all sizes of screens available these days, but the designer's instinct and requirements must also be considered. Okay, and the design should be a combination of absolute and relative lengths as and when required. Okay, in the next video, we will discuss the difference between header and footer and also see how to design a basic header and footer. Okay, we will also check out some more important CSS properties to make our designs responsive and head to the advanced versions in future videos. Trust me, if you watch those videos, you will never fail to design a header and footer like a pro. Okay, so if you would like to be notified, hit the subscribe button and also the bell icon so that you don't miss on any updates. And if you think this video was worth it, please hit the like and share this video with as many people as you can. Thank you so much for watching.